Come here guys, check this out. I'm in the brand new all-electric Ford Explorer, and have a look at this screen. It's called the Sync Move, and it does move up and down. Shame I can't take it away completely, but come on, what a flex. Right, let me show you the rest of the car.
The new Explorer is the latest model in Ford's European lineup. It's a mid-sized crossover that has room for 5, it'll sit slightly below the more premium Mach-E, and will be built in Germany with Europeans in mind. In fact, its job is to help with the complete reinvention of the Ford brand on this continent.
If you're familiar with Ford's American products, you'll definitely have heard of the Ford Explorer, one of the longest running and most popular SUVs in North America. Ford belatedly brought the Explorer to Europe in the form of a plug-in hybrid SUV, but that car will now be phased out and replaced with this, the brand new all-electric Explorer, in order to help Ford accelerate their electric ambitions in Europe. But Ford haven't done it alone. They've had a little bit of help from an old friend, or is that enemy?
Yep, the chassis is the same MEB modular electric drive platform used by VW in the ID3, ID4, 5, 6 and ID Buzz, as well as various Skoda and Audi products like the Enyaq and Q4 e-tron. These underpinnings are the result of a technical partnership designed to save manufacturers money, but the styling is all Ford.
Ford say the new Explorer captures the spirit of the original, but with a modern twist. Whereas the old cars had a large, distinctive upper grille, this, being all electric, doesn't actually need one. So they installed what they call the Shield, a smooth front end which is designed to help aerodynamic efficiency. This also has enabled them to play with where they place the Ford badge. In this case, they've been able to place it front and center and enlarge it slightly to help promote the brand. If you look closely, you'll also see Explorer written in this black section just up top, and there are no dynamic cooling aids down the bottom. It's all fairly simple. The aim of it is to have a strong, confident, but not too aggressive stance. If you're wondering whether it has a front trunk, well, it looks like it should because it's such a large frontal area, but because it's based on the VW MEB platform, that sadly isn't the case.
In terms of size, it's 1.6 meters high, 1.87 meters wide, and 4.46 meters long, so somewhere between a Cougar and the Mach-E. Think Tesla Model Y, but wider and not quite as long, and you won't be too far off. The styling is chunky and not too fussy in profile, with wheels measuring from 19 to 21 inches. The C-pillar has an interesting translucent effect that mimics the shark's fin on the original Explorer while improving visibility in the back of the cabin.
Around the back, a lot of presence on this car, very American. Ford really leaning into their kind of rugged aesthetic history here, but it's got these clear visors at the side with these 7-shaped LED lights and high-level brake light just up here integrated into a reasonably large upper spoiler section, and again, the Explorer badge tucked away in this black horizontal strip. The thing that I noticed though is that the bumper doesn't actually stick out very far. It's all fairly low profile, fairly well concealed, despite having all the requisite crash testing in order to keep passengers safe. I'll open the boot, and as you can see, it's got a fairly large boot, in this case 450 litres, very sizable, and you've got some underfloor storage underneath with a thin area down here for storing even more stuff. Not massive, but plenty of flexibility. It's a decent size. So inside, Ford have tried to deliver an ultra-modern and high-tech interior, and the materials are actually pretty decent. This isn't actually leather, even though it looks like it. It's actually called Sensico, which is a man-made material, but it isn't actually cheap feeling. It feels quite decent. They've also done a pretty good job in terms of the amount of storage space they give you inside this car. So in the center console, there's a little bit of storage down there. You've also got, right here, enough room for a 15-inch laptop. How clever is that? And also, you can swap out these two cup holders for a slightly different arrangement. If you want to, you can have yourself a little tray for your spare change, for example, or you can choose the cup holders, whatever suits you. Plus, you've got storage for a mobile phone with some wireless charging, It's also got a traditional glove box, as you'd expect, plus some decent sized door bins. And one other thing I forgot to show you, there's a partitioner in the center console that also doubles up as an ice scraper. Very clever. Sticking on the subject of storage a little longer, the screen I showed you at the beginning of this film is called Sync Move, and the idea is that it moves out the way to provide something called My Personal Locker, which is a storage area that you can use to keep bits and bobs hidden away from others. Things like maybe Haribo that you don't want your passengers to know you've got. But it's a very usable, very clever storage space. In terms of the screen itself, it's built by Ford. It's the Sync system, and it's got a vertical orientation, which means that that's particularly handy when you're running a sat nav, for example, because it lets you see further ahead on the road. No physical buttons in this car though. All of it is controlled via the display. You've actually got these capacitive buttons along the bottom on the center console to control things like your volume or the overall power or your parking camera. But even though I'm not a massive fan of that, I do prefer my physical buttons. At least they've got the heating, ventilation and climate control area permanently on the bottom of the screen. Will it work better than Volkswagen's equivalent products? We'll have to wait and see. But on the subject of VW, if you look around the cabin, you'll actually see a few nods to VW products, like the drive selector knob up here, almost straight off of VW. The light switch, definitely seen that before in a VW ID3, ID4, and also the window winding mechanisms are identical to what you get on VW products, including, and this is to my annoyance, only 2 buttons for controlling the windows. You have to press a separate button marked rear to control the rear windows. On the upside though, this is quite nice. You've got a sound bar up top with some ambient lighting built in. That looks quite cool, and hopefully it'll sound half decent as well. Right, let's have a look in the back. Loads of space back here. That front seat's adjusted for me, and just look at the amount of legroom I've got to play with. That's a lot. And headroom, very generous as well, despite it having a meter squared of panoramic glass sunroof. We'll have to wait and see whether that makes it into the final car, but loads of headroom and also loads of light being let into the cabin as well. Again, you've got this fake leather material, which looks quite nice and feels quite nice. You've also got the customary cup holders down here with easy access to the boot, a couple of USB ports. The thing that I'm not a massive fan of though is the foot position. So look at my legs, they're slightly angled upwards. That's because there are batteries in the floor of this car, and that raises the floor slightly, which means that my feet are higher, which isn't ideal, but certainly not a deal breaker.
Specs are still to be confirmed at this stage, but we'd expect the Explorer to be very similar to what Volkswagen delivers in the ID4, with batteries as large as 77 kilowatt hours, twin motors, and a possible range in the region of 250 miles. The ID4 will recharge at 175 kilowatts, and so likely will this. Pricing is unconfirmed, but Ford says it will be somewhere between a Cougar at around £30,000 and a Mach-E, which starts at around £50,000.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of competition in this space. When people are going to think about buying a Ford Explorer, they'll also be considering cars from Tesla, like the Model Y, Skoda Enyaq, VW ID4, and a ton of others emerging out of China. Will it be any good? Well, I'm sure it will be, but of course we'll have to wait and see and give you that final verdict when we actually get to drive it. But in the meantime, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.